More than 5 million players fell for these traps, which is crazy because they're so easy to replicate that your friends will think that your brain turned into Grandmaster mode overnight. Or they may want to check your chair. Let's start with the first trap. You play the queen's pawn. 99% players either put the knight here or they push this pawn in the center. Let's start with people who likes to play the queen's Indian. They expect you to actually push this pawn in the center because this is what they studied. But we have a little surprise for them. You're gonna play the Levitsky attack with this move. That can seem strange. So first of all, you're gonna win games pretty easily because people are gonna pre-move on chess.com this as a second move. And you're gonna take the queen. And they're gonna resign like this.
And I will take your queen as well, if you don't subscribe.
I'm sure it happened to you. For better players, they're gonna understand, I cannot push this, because otherwise this bishop is gonna take my queen. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna push this pawn instead, because they want to develop their queen here, putting pressure on our pawn. We're gonna play a very quiet move, which is pushing this pawn, because we want to be developing the bishop on this square. And now, the modern approach, I see a lot of people playing this move. They develop their bishop because they have a trap in mind. And if your friend plays this move, what you're gonna do, you're gonna counter in the center by playing this because you want to put pressure on this pawn. But now they think they're winning, that they can just grab your pawn. Because when you take with the bishop, they think that they win a piece against you. Because what they see, if the queen comes here, he would attack the bishop if this bishop wasn't here, and it would be a check as well. So what they have in mind is just get rid of this bishop and take this knight here. Because when he takes back, now with my queen, I can just check. And then it's a fork, I'm winning the bishop. And I see a lot of people actually resigning here. As surprising as it is, white is winning here. Just move the king out of the way. And this guy is gonna take the bishop. Most of your friends are not thinking players and they're just gonna take this bishop. But now you have a little surprise for them. Develop the queen here. Do you see what this does? Why do we put the queen here? The queen here is attacking this pawn. If I take the pawn, it means that the rook is gone as well. But you have another idea with the queen here, is that with the bishop you are attacking this. And this is a double attack. There is no way that black can defend both. Some people don't want to lose the rook, so what they're gonna do, they're gonna push, so you cannot take actually this pawn. But what you're gonna do, here, you're gonna take the other pawn, this is a check. The king moves, and now you take the knight. And you see that black thought they were winning a piece. It turns out you got the piece back, which was the knight here, and you got the pawn here. But we're gonna win in style. If your friend plays a move like this because he's trying to control this square, because he was really scared that you could come here and give a check with the queen. So what he does, he put the queen, so you cannot. But here you have another sacrifice. Push the pawn. Why do we give the pawn for free? Because when he takes it, it opens up actually for this rook a very nice column, especially when the king is in the center. So you're gonna put the rook here. The queen is gonna move. And now you're gonna give a check with the bishop. The king is gonna try to hide, but again we do the same thing. This position could be about actually how to open lines when the king is in the center as well. So you push this pawn. You see what you're trying to do. You're trying to open because this pawn is actually the protection of this king. So what you do, you try to open it. Because for him to take, it would be very, very dangerous. You can come with the queen here. But this is not the point here. Your friend is most likely gonna want to close lines, so he's gonna push instead. So he doesn't want you to open actually this file. But here again, check. We want to open the line. We want to give him this pawn. When he takes the pawn, now the point of this was to free this square. Why do we want to free this square? Because now we can put a bishop here. And you see that this rook here on the corner is in danger. And the only move that black can do here to not lose this rook is to put the knight on c6. But you're not done. You're gonna increase pressure against this king by putting the queen here. Now both pieces are attacking this poor knight that cannot be defended by any piece. So he has to move the knight. So he puts it here, which at first makes sense because you're thinking you're attacking the queen, but it doesn't really matter. You're gonna have to think one move ahead. This rook is attacked. So all you have to do is put the queen on a square that is putting pressure on this pawn. Why? Because this rook is protecting. Yes, but this bishop is attacking the rook, and the rook has to move, which means this pawn, I'll be able to take it on the next move. And this is what happens here. Your friend will have to move the rook, and now this pawn is unprotected, and you can take it. And when the king moves to the only square that he can go to, you have the final blow, which is bishop f7. And the queen is protecting the bishop, but then this bishop is putting pressure on this square. You're trying to actually deliver checkmate this way with the rook. And there is no way to actually save the game here. Putting the bishop here is not a thing because it would be checkmate in one move. The other move that you can play is simply rook c7, but that's a mate in 3. Try to find it if you can. It's simply check. If the king goes up, is a mate in 2 with queen here. So he tries to cover with the rook and he thinks that he's out of the way. But now you come in with the rook. The king has only one square and the queen takes the rook, delivering checkmate. Now let's move on to trap number 2 that is even more spectacular. What I'm about to show you really impressed me. You start with the same move. He plays knight f6 this time. He doesn't push the pawn in the center. A very, very popular reply. And you go with the same move, and that's why I like this opening, the Trompovsky attack. You will always play bishop g5. Basically, the only time that you don't play bishop g5 is if he plays this, right? So don't pre-move this, because the queen would take. Yeah, don't do this. So if he plays knight f6, you go with bishop g5. And now the most challenging variation for white is if black plays this move. He's asking a question to this pawn straight away. And he wants to destroy our center. And he's thinking, if you take, well, all he has to do is just a check and then get the pawn back. We don't want to let him develop his pieces. We want exactly the opposite. And here the best move is to just push, which can seem a little bit dangerous at first, because he has a move like this. And now he's attacking this pawn. But because this bishop is out, this bishop is not here, this bishop is not protecting the pawn anymore. And we have an issue is that we cannot go with the queen here protecting the pawn. Otherwise the knight is taking this one. So what do we do here? How do we protect this? Playing a move like this would be a big disaster because it would create a lot of weak squares. And we don't want this. You know what's better than defending this pawn? Giving it away. Like in life, the same thing. Sometimes just ignoring the problem just fixes it by itself. And let him actually take the pawn. And now what you're gonna do, again, is gonna sound like super weird, but you see how he's attacking the knight. So you're gonna protect it. And the best way is to do it with the bishop. Why? You cannot protect with the queen. Otherwise, he's the rook. And we don't want to give him a rook for free. So instead, you just bring the bishop. This is the first trap in this position. Already your friends are gonna lose because they're gonna play moves like this. Thinking that there is no issue, you're gonna put the rook here. They're gonna realize the only square that this queen has is this one. That's the only one. And after this move, they should be resigning. I know that nobody resigns on chess.com these days, but they should. Because you're threatening a fork here, you're attacking the queen, and the queen can never come back here to protect this square, because there is the bishop. So it means the only move in this situation is to put the queen here, and you win the game like this, creating a very nice fork, winning the rook already, on move 8, which is pretty crazy. So let's go back for a second, because not everybody will play a move like this or like this, and letting you actually win the rook. Instead, the best move in this position for black is to just go back. They took their pawn. This was the mission of this queen. Now they're saying, okay, prove it, that giving me this pawn actually was dangerous for me, and we will prove it. What you're gonna do now? Why did we give this pawn? Because you're gonna have an advantage in development, and you're gonna take the center, like this. You see how these pawns are super dangerous and arriving very fast? He doesn't want you to actually push here. So the move here is this, so he controls and you cannot push. But we don't care about this. We're just gonna push this pawn. And now we're again threatening to push in the center and blow up the center and attacking actually his pieces. So what is he gonna do about this? Most people play this move because they want to develop their bishop here. They don't want to have their king in the center, so they want to castle. That's too slow. Look how their king actually is in the center, all scared. We're not gonna let him breathe. So here we're already attacking and we go with e5. They took this pawn, sure, but now it's punishment time. So they take, you take back. You can see that they cannot take this pawn because it's protected. The knight goes back attacking this pawn. So all you do is just protect it. And you develop a piece which is amazing. Now he's gonna try to put his bishop here because all he wants is castle. Whenever he castles, and he's hidden behind these pawns, his position is okay. But we don't let him castle. Attack the queen. That's the first move. The queen cannot go to this square, otherwise you would jump straight away with the knight here attacking the queen. So if the queen goes here, all you have to do is coming like this. Also, the queen coming here is quite dangerous considering there is the bishop attacking it whenever I move the knight. So the only safe square I would say is to just retreat and go back home. Look at the position of all these pieces now, just at the cost of one pawn. We gave him one pawn, he's so underdeveloped, we have an amazing center. And here, we're gonna start the attack. Crush him with e6. When he takes, we're not gonna take back here. This is what he was thinking. He's thinking that you take back, he goes with the knight here, and then he's gonna castle. We're not gonna do something like this. Now bring the army. Jump with your knight here. This knight is so strong. You're threatening to take here with a fork on the queen and the bishop. That's what you're trying to do. So he's gonna move the knight, thinking is okay, because now the bishop is protecting the pawn. So if you take, all he has to do is just take your knight, and he's not in danger. But we continue, and this is what you want to do in attacks. You want to use your full army. Bring the bishop. You see how this bishop was the only piece that wasn't developed? Give a check. The king is forced to move here, because if he covers, all you have to do is take this pawn. And this piece that covered here cannot take the knight because of this pin. So you see, if the bishop covers, now we win a piece like this. Because we're attacking the queen, we're attacking the bishop. This bishop is pinned by this one, so he cannot take it. And you win the game this way. But okay, he's not forced to actually cover and put a piece here. What he can do is move the king. And now, how do you continue in this game? This is where usually we mess it up, right? Each move is a trap. Here you can take this pawn. And the reason why we take the pawn is that this pawn gives us a support on this square, which means we're threatening to come with the knight here, creating a nice little fork between these two. That's what we're trying to achieve. And there is no way that he can avoid it. In the game, it went a6. He's saying, if you fork me, it's okay, I will move the queen. When you take the rook, I will take the bishop first. And then this knight that will be here is totally stuck. But now you have another idea. Just move the bishop here. Ignore the fact that this bishop is attacked. Why do you move the bishop here? Because it opens up actually this line, attacking the queen. And now you're thinking maybe all he has to do is just exchange and then you can take the bishop. Yes, but that would be a disaster after this move. Check. The king cannot go here, so the only move is to cover. Now you give a check like this, by castling, which is classy, I have to say. Now the only move is to cover with the bishop. And now all you have to do is take your piece back like this, and look at these pieces. Absolutely horrible. This position for, you're gonna come with the knight here, putting pressure on this bishop. This one day will come here. It's a disaster. But in the game, it didn't go like this. If you cannot take the queen, where are you going to put this queen? You cannot go here because there is the bishop. You cannot come here because there is the rook. There will be a discovery with the bishop. The only square that the queen can go to is just on a5. Your friend is thinking here that he trapped you because he's pinning this knight to the king. And also this bishop is attacked, which means you're going to lose a piece. But that was part of your plan here. Ignore both and castle. And none of the pieces can be taken. What happens now if your friend decides to take the knight? I'm sure you saw it, because this is a checkmate. And no, you cannot bring the knight. The knight here is totally pinned. You understand why we castled now. This is a checkmate. So taking the knight is not an option. But what happens actually if I take the bishop? This is what your friend is going to think about here. Now, take this pawn. Again, the queen cannot take, otherwise it would be checkmate. So the queen retreats. And now how do we continue? Keep attacking. Look at this. 1, 2, 3, 4 pieces at home. It's a disaster. Bring the knight. This knight is pinned, remember? And also this knight is attacking the queen. Where do we put the queen now? It's a queen chase. The queen moves, possibly the only square that she has that is kind of safe, but not really. Because now we have Daruk sacrifice. Yes, we sacrifice Daruk. Now, how do you take back this rook? If you take with the pawn, that's a nice little fork, attacking this and this. Then the pawn is protected by the knight. So this queen is gone. So taking with the pawn is not an option. So the only move is to take with the bishop. Now, do you remember that fork I told you about? Let's go. Forking these two. The queen again has to move. Now again, your friend is going to think that, he saved the position because he's thinking he's attacking the rook. But now there is an absolutely brilliant move. This is knight d6. The knight is protecting the rook, but you're thinking, what is this move? Yes, he's attacking the queen. Yes, he's defending the rook. But I can just take it, like this. Yes, you can take it. But now you have this check. The bishop covers. You only have one piece that hasn't been playing all game. But now she's ready. She jumps in with a check. The king moves, and now a check with the knight. It would be a fork. So it means that the only move for black is to actually eliminate the knight this way. But when you take with the queen, because you can now recapture, now you're threatening checkmate here. How does black stop this checkmate? There is absolutely no way to stop this. The queen cannot come actually on these squares, right? To try and stop actually checkmate on the next move, which means white crushed their opponent. Because the only move is to just do this. You take, and then it's a checkmate. Let me show you trap number 3. People go with knight f6 again. You're gonna play the Trompovsky again. And they go with knight e4. This is one of the most common response. What do they say? They move the knight here thinking, okay, you developed your bishop, but what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna put my knight here, and I'm gonna gain a tempo because I'm attacking your bishop that you have to move it one more time. He's basically telling you this move is bad. All you have to do here is just bring the bishop here. Make sure that you don't let the bishop hanging over there. You bring it here. And most people play d5 now. And they think they have an amazing position because they also have the center. The knight is very well placed. Okay, but we have a little surprise for them. Now push this pawn because you want to be developing this bishop. And the ideal square is going to be this. Most people are going to play bishop f5. Here, developing because, and then they want to be playing this. They don't want to be playing this first, because then this bishop is totally blocked. So what they do is that they put the bishop out, and they're thinking on the next move, they're going to be pushing, so then this bishop actually can come out. Now I want you to put the bishop here. Some people here blunder, they think about activity first, and they're going to push this pawn, because they think they can bring the queen here, and they can start putting pressure against your pawn. But here, it's a massive blunder already. All you have to do is push this. You attack this knight. If the knight goes to this square, all you have to do is just grab the bishop for free. But now they're thinking, okay, I can still put my knight here. So this bishop has a defender, which is this knight. What do you have to do? Get rid of the defender, like this. Now this bishop is hanging, but you're thinking, okay, they don't have to take this one. This one doesn't have a defender, so all I'll have to do is just take his bishop. But there is a big difference here, because you again can take another piece when this one is still hanging. Let me show you. You go like this. If they take the bishop, now all you have to do is take this one. Count material, 2 knights, only 1 bishop. You're 1 piece up, and you're totally winning in the game. If you're playing someone who's above 1000 and you start with d4 and he goes knight f6 and you play the Trompovsky, he has a lot of ways to respond here. He can push the pawn here. That's another way to play. A lot of people actually like to play this move because, they want to play like a sort of Nimzo-Indian if you put the knight here. Or they want to play their queen's gambit by putting the pawn here. But now you can use the fact that there is a pin. And what you can play, you can push this pawn 2 squares ahead. And this one cannot be taken because of this pin. And the best move in this situation for black, if he knows, is to attack your bishop. And you'll be forced here to take the knight. Because if you go away, all he has to do is take your pawn in the center. And you're a pawn down. So you don't want this. And if you go here, well, he's going to keep bothering you. And then you go back, and again, he's going to take the pawn in the center. So we don't want to give him a pawn in the center. There is no way. So when he pushes here, you are forced to actually take the knight. He's going to take back, and now develop knights before bishop. So we're going to play this. And the plan is going to be very simple. Most people here in this situation will put their bishop on b4, because they want to pin you. And what you're going to do, you're going to put the queen here. The reason is that if he takes the knight, you're happy to take back with the queen. This move has so many ideas. The other idea is that you will be able to push with this pawn and have an amazing center, and the queen is protecting it. The other idea of putting the queen here is that you will long castle. Now people can play this, they can play this move, they can play this, they can play this, but most people, I would say, just play d6. This bishop is quite annoying. So what you can do is just attack the bishop. If he gives you the bishop for the knight, you're very happy in this situation. You're putting pressure against this pawn. That is not so easy to protect, actually, because if he plays this, which is kind of like the only way to actually protect this pawn, what you have to do is just long castle. And then you're going to be launching the pawns in the center, and the knight will come here, the bishop here. Your friends are going to play this because they were really scared that you could push the pawn. And now this one is totally lost. So they would play this. Now we have a trap. You go with e5. The knight is going to come here. And you don't exchange pieces when you're attacking. There is a very weird looking move. Retreat your bishop here. Now, most people attack the center with this move and they feel super good about it. We don't want to actually take. And because his bishop here would be amazing, eyeing actually our king. So we don't want this. Instead, just attack the knight. The knight retreats, and only now you can take this pawn. The reason is that when he takes, we have a little trick, which is developing your queen here. But why do we develop the queen here? Okay, we're attacking a pawn, but now you're thinking, okay, all he has to do is just castle, and this pawn is protected. But no, we had another trick. We want to play bishop h6. This one is pinned, so he cannot take the bishop. And also you're threatening checkmate next move. The only way to avoid the checkmate is to push the pawn, which means you're simply taking a bishop for a rook. The queen takes, and you're in a winning position. A rook is 5 points, the bishop is only 3, and then you will continue like this, attacking him. But let's see what happens when they play other move after this. d4, knight f6, you go here, they go knight e4, we said that we retreat the bishop. And now what if they don't play this move? What if they go for the most aggressive, which is this? They're attacking our pawn in the center, like this. Now, maybe the only time that you will move your f-pawn in the opening, that is actually a good move, you're gonna attack the knight like this. He's not gonna retreat. What he's gonna do here, he's gonna give you a check. Now, you cover the check with the pawn. Now this knight is still attacked, so he retreats the knight. And now I want you to play this move. You develop your knight here. Most people are gonna take in the center here. And now the best move is to not take back straight away. What you can do is just play what we call an intermediary move. You're gonna play this. You're attacking the queen and you want to actually take back the pawn with the knight. Let me show you also another mistake that people have here. Most people are gonna go, okay, I'm taking the center because this is what they learned in books, and you're gonna win a pawn by playing this, attacking the pawn and attacking the queen. The queen is forced to move, and you're gonna take the pawn with tempo again, attacking the queen, and you have an amazing position. So already there is a trap. If they don't play this blunder and they understand that your threat is this, attacking the pawn and the queen, they're gonna take. Now you attack the queen retreats, and now you take with the queen in the center. Because how many moves this queen played? When you have a piece that played a lot of moves in the opening, and you didn't with yours, you want to be exchanging it. You're kind of canceling all the moves used by that piece by doing this. Now he's gonna develop the knight, he's attacking your queen. Be very careful. And you're gonna exchange here. And then you simply put your knight trying to exchange or go to this square, which would be a very nice square to actually fork, right? Now there is some tactics. It's getting a little bit more complex. He doesn't have to take. Why? Because if he takes, you just take with the pawn and you will have an amazing center. And also, it opens up actually this file for the rook after you took. So he doesn't want this. He's not going to open for you the lines by taking this knight. What he's going to do instead, he's going to attack both pieces. And you think it's a fork and you think you're losing a piece, but you're not. All you have to do with this knight is take this one. If he takes back, he loses a pawn because now you can take this one, right? So he has to take the bishop. That's the only way. And you simply come back with the knight. The position is perfectly fine here. This position is quite interesting. Now he's going to put the knight here because with this knight, he likes to come with this kind of squares, which seems scary for us, but it's not. All you have to do, put your knight here. I know the knight is on the rim. It's not dim. The reason is that he cannot come here because all you have to do now is take this pawn. And no, there is no fork because the knight is controlling this square. So he cannot do this. So most of the time he's going to develop his bishop. And all you have to do is just get rid of this annoying pawn by playing this. When he takes, you simply take back. And you have this coming next, where you're going to take the center. The king in this kind of positions, because I would say it's like a queenless middle game. Instead of being an endgame, I like to call this a queenless middle game because there is kind of like still a lot of pieces on the board, which means it can still be dangerous, but much less when there are no queens on the board, which means this king will be very good actually on this square. After you push, this bishop will come here, you're going to push this pawn, and this is how you're going to be playing here. And long term, you have a good advantage because look at his pawn structure. These are double pawns. They're ugly and they're weak. This is an isolated pawn that cannot be protected by another pawn. So it means the pawn endgames that you will have at the end will be winning for white.